We have breaking news in the trial of Zoe Rosenberg. We can tell you right now, a jury has been seated, and it is 7 men and 5 women who will hear the fate of this woman, Zoe Rosenberg. This is her committing the alleged crime for which she is being put on trial, rescuing 4 chickens from a slaughter truck in Sonoma County at a slaughterhouse way back in 2023. You got to wonder how much money our government, taxpayer dollars, is being spent to prosecute this woman for rescuing 4 chickens with a retail value of $24. If they were to be purchased dead in a store, approximately $24. Let's even hit $30, okay? $35. But of course, the defense argues that these chickens were sick and they would be condemned quite likely because of their sickness. Therefore, they would have no monetary value. So nonetheless, the Sonoma County government is prosecuting her. She can do a half a decade in prison, jail, whatever you want to call it, behind bars for the act you are looking at here. Unchained TV has committed to covering this trial from beginning to end. This is day 11, and a jury was finally seated late yesterday afternoon. So that is big news. More than 300 potential jurors were summoned. And because this is such a controversial case with strong opinions on both sides, it took 7 days for a jury to be seated. And once again, we can tell you that that jury is comprised of 7 men and 5 women. So you can imagine how nerve-wracking this is for the 23-year-old defendant, UC Berkeley student. You're looking at her there at the moment that she was arrested. Zoe Rosenberg, here's her reaction and insight into this development.
Well, we officially have a seated jury. We actually finished picking a jury, which is really nerve-wracking because we'll actually be looking directly at the people who are going to determine this case. Things are feeling very real now. We're going to be coming back on Monday for opening statements, really kicking off the trial. And tomorrow we'll be coming back just to handle some motions outside of the presence of the jury. But yeah, we have 12 jurors who are seated in this case and 4 alternates. Those are 4 people who are available to step in if any of the 12 jurors become sick or have any kind of emergency come up where they won't be able to come to court and fulfill their duty as jurors. Those will be the 16 people who will sit throughout the remainder of this trial and decide the facts of this case and decide if I will be a convicted felon.
Wow, nerve-wracking. Imagine how nerve-wracking it is for Zoe Rosenberg. This has been going on since 2023 when she went into that slaughterhouse. And remember, for many of those months, more than 20 months, she had to wear an ankle monitor that was just recently taken off. Let's go straight out to Matthew Zerbil, who is at the courthouse. Bring us the very latest. You were there as the jury was selected, monitoring inside court. What is your thought? What insights do you have?
Yeah, it's great to finally have a jury. The judge was able to get, the 12 jurors sworn in, and then that happened right away, actually, at the start of the selection process yesterday. And then the rest of the selection process was getting the remaining set of alternates. In case one of the original jurors has to drop out during the case, the alternates will step in. Otherwise, once the jury starts deliberations, they'll be sent home. A lot of the jurors around me in the courthouse were celebrating when the jury was sworn in because they didn't want to have to be part of a jury for potentially 4 to 6 weeks. And yeah, it's just good to have a jury.
And let me ask you, you were there. What are your observations about this jury? 7 men, 5 women, so it's heavily male. Did you get any sense, what were some of the, okay, let me quote from Direct Action Everywhere, which is Zoe Rosenberg is an animal cruelty investigator for the grassroots movement, Direct Action Everywhere, which has been described by the company in question, Purdue, as an extremist group with a radical agenda. They have supporters there at the courthouse, and they're going to be there for the length of the trial, just as we here at Unchained TV are going to be covering it for the length of the trial. But let me read a little bit about how they describe what went on in court. Multiple potential jurors expressed compassion for animals, and unsurprisingly, the prosecution was quick to use their strikes to remove these jurors. One juror said he would consider the chicken's perspective. The prosecution excused him. They also used a strike to cut a woman who said she is not vegetarian, but ideally she would be. So, I mean, do you have any thoughts before we go to the rest of our panel, Matthew, on who these people are who were selected, their age? All we know about them is 7 men, 5 women.
Yeah, I wasn't looking very closely at the jurors themselves, but I was listening to their answers. And most interestingly, the questions that both the prosecution and the defense were asking. The prosecution was, I think, both focused on, they did a lot of asking about whether the jurors were vegetarian or vegan, whether they knew other vegetarians or vegans. They also seemed to be trying to ask the jurors, a little bit obliquely actually, whether they felt judged by any vegetarians or vegans in their life, or knew any other vegetarians and vegans. And of the alternates that we were looking at, the one woman who said that she thought that ideally she'd be vegetarian, and also someone who had vegetarian friends who they spent time with regularly, both said that they didn't feel judged. And the prosecution then used 2 of their peremptory strikes to dismiss them. And then on the defense side, the questions that he asked were more focused on checking whether the jurors had a sense of what is the duties of someone if they believe somebody isn't following the law, what are the cases in which there's a mistake in what someone believes to be the law, and try to get into that. I think both of these felt a little bit like it was kind of going through a lot of the elements that they expect to be brought up in the case, which would probably get the jurors a little bit used to these ideas, and testing them to see whether they have any resistance to, for example, on the prosecution side, resistance to veganism, or a feeling that activism goes too far, or on the defense side, a check on whether they have a feeling like the law is something that individual people should be participating in.
I just think this is an unfair situation. I mean, do they ask people, everybody's got to be a meat eater and no vegan friends in order to make a judgment in this case? I'm outraged. And I know you're laughing, Lindsay, but
I'm not laughing.
As far as I'm concerned, it's prejudice. As far as I'm concerned, it's prejudice.
It is. And I'm looking at the difference between the questions the defense are asking. They're asking people how they feel about the law, citizens respecting and upholding the law, citizens being humane, citizens showing care, showing humanity. Don't you think those are things people need today? Versus, oh, have you ever seen a vegan? Have they looked down on you? How do you feel about vegans and vegetarians? I mean, it's paranoid in a way.
Well, I mean, I think I personally, now let's bring our lawyer, Justine Block, you're an attorney. I mean, my personal feeling is, and I'm not a lawyer, but I've covered a lot of criminal cases where people are asking always every 5 seconds for mistrials. I mean, do you see a prejudice here that could be the basis for either a mistrial or an appeal?
I do not hear that based on what's been presented so far. I understand the concerns. It sounds like a normal voir dire process based on what's explained so far. I mean, the overall picture is to ensure that the jury is fair and impartial, and it's normal for the defense and prosecution to focus on the biases, and the prosecution is going to ask to eliminate those that they think would be sympathetic to the defendant. That's their job, and it doesn't seem fair, but I wouldn't see a legal issue per se with it based on what's been described so far.
Well, okay, I see what you mean, but imagine if you use some other personal attribute. Let's say the defendant, and this is nothing to do with this case. I'm doing a hypothetical here, but let's say the defendant was gay, and the prosecution is asking the people sitting in the jury, do you know anybody who's gay? Are you gay? Have you ever had a friend who's gay? I think there would be an uproar, to be honest with you. And that's why I say there is such prejudice concerning veganism. I'm gay, and I can tell you that I've experienced far more prejudice for being vegan than for my sexual orientation. I want to bring in Tiffany Brunelli. You are a former law enforcement investigator turned DXC member. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I recently had to go for jury service, and I had to sit through a lot of the questions that the potential jurors were asked, and there was nothing about diet. There was nothing about veganism. It was a murder case, but there weren't any, they were more law-based questions. It didn't seem anything about your personal beliefs about diet or who's vegan, any of this type of stuff.
Well, that's ridiculous. I just, I get what you're saying, Justine, that everybody's allowed to do what they do to get the kind of juror they want, but aren't there regulations? Like, I know with peremptory challenges, you're not supposed to, let's say there's a case with a racial factor. The prosecution, correct me if I'm wrong, is not supposed to use their peremptory challenges to just excuse people based on race, no other criteria. That you have to, even if it's a peremptory challenge, let's say the defendant is of one race, and then you go in as a prosecutor and just completely get rid of every single person of that racial background. Couldn't that be the basis of an appeal? And I'm wondering if there's some kind of similarity to what's happening here.
Well, it's definitely a good question worth looking into as far as whether there's an abuse of the peremptory challenges, but the judge hadn't disqualified those questions, I don't think. So
But could it be the basis for an appeal if there was a conviction?
Well, I should disclose that my background's not in criminal law. It's government law and public policy. So I'd have to research that question. I mean, I'm happy to check into it, and we could report back at the next panel, or we could ask someone from the defense team.
Well,
their thoughts on
no,
it.
I appreciate your transparency. That's really important that you're saying, I don't want to just give answers to give answers. I'm just asking questions to ask questions because this is what's popping into my mind.
Yeah.
And were there objections at all? I'm just curious if the defense was posing any objections when they were asked, Matthew. Yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah, let me check my notes. I do remember an objection to a couple of the questions that I thought were fairly leading. If it moves very quickly, so I'm not always able to get them. But if you give me a moment, I'll take a look.
Absolutely. And, I appreciate everybody being factual, just like MSNBC has a point of view and Fox News has a point of view. We have a point of view, but we're still factual. We're still journalistic. We still invite the other side on anytime. And remember, Zoe Rosenberg, who basically said that she tried to report what she considered criminal animal cruelty repeatedly over years to law enforcement and was completely ignored, decided to go into this slaughterhouse and rescue those 4 chickens because she was repeatedly ignored. So let's listen to what she's had to say before the trial started in an interview, and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
It's been many years now of reporting criminal animal cruelty at a number of factory farms and facilities in Sonoma County to authorities. In particular, the company involved in my case, that company has been reported by Direct Action Everywhere investigators since 2018.
This one needs help.
Since 2018, people have over and over again reported rampant criminal misconduct, including birds being left to slowly die without access to food and water due to illnesses and disabilities that prevented them from walking to food and water. Evidence of birds being boiled alive at the slaughterhouse. And all we've really received is dismissive emails, people trying to direct us to another agency, and then that agency directing us back to the agency that directed us to them, and people just sending us in circles, and nobody actually taking us seriously. It's almost felt like they're just making a mockery of these animals who are suffering in such a severe way. And that's really why I did what I did, because in the end of the day, if the authorities won't act when animals are being criminally mistreated, what else are you supposed to do but intervene and help the animals yourself?
Well, there you go. People commenting it seems biased. If they excluded them over the answers, possibly grounds for appeal. And somebody saying it's kind of like racism. It's being sort of like a racism. I mean, look, there is bias against vegans. Let's not kid around here. There is a societal bias against vegans. I mean, as a vegan, I can tell you I've experienced it many times. And, first they ignore you, then they make fun of you, then they get angry at you, and then they join you. Isn't that the strategy? I don't know whether we're in the make fun of you or the angry at you part. I'm sure that this trial would probably fall under the angry at you part. But if you consider that this is a culture war, the questions being proposed to the jury, what if we lived in a world where instead of 95% of people eating meat and, well, even 98% of people eating meat and 2% not eating meat, it was 98% of people did not eat meat and 2% did eat meat? Then what would you do? Exclude 300 jurors and be left with a handful of jurors that say, yes, they eat meat, therefore they can be objective? I think that if the jurors are going to be questioned about their diet and whether or not they are vegan and whether or not they eat meat, then, well, wait a second, let me stop myself. Nobody questioned them as to whether they eat meat, just as to whether they're vegan. Did the defense go in and question any potential jurors, Matthew, about whether they eat animals?
So the time when I was observing was just for the alternates, so I can't speak with 100% confidence to the whole jury. But at least for the alternates, it was only the prosecution asking. And then just to make sure that I was clear earlier, the prosecution was using their peremptory strikes instead of asking the judge to strike for cause for the ones who mentioned that they were vegetarian. So it wasn't the judge striking them. It was the peremptory strikes, which have a bit more wider latitude than claiming that this is necessarily a bias that the jurors have.
Very good point. And I really appreciate how you're nuanced about this. Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask if the defense, why wouldn't the defense ask them, do you have anything against vegans? I mean, it would be the same thing. Do you have a bias against vegans? It's crazy. I mean, how can they be so one-sided? It's not justice. It's suppression of justice. And it's clear that this is really a fight for how people in the future are going to view animals. Are they just objects, or are they something that should be regarded? So this is so important.
Well, yeah, and we have so much to discuss, but I do want to pick up on that and show the societal state that we're in. Now, you hear people complaining about crime all the time. It's a big national conversation even now. I don't get into politics or partisan politics. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. But take a look at this turnout for what's called an open rescue. And for those who don't know what an open rescue is, it's when people don't hide their faces, and it's almost always after they've investigated, found what they say is evidence of animal cruelty happening in factory farms, tried to report it repeatedly, were ignored, and then after repeated attempts to get law enforcement to enforce animal cruelty laws, go in and peacefully, nonviolently rescue animals. Look at the law enforcement response to an open rescue that occurred several years ago, not connected to this case. Look at this. This is an open rescue in Northern California, and you can see the police showing up as if they're an army going to war, and you see the members of Direct Action Everywhere and supporters of Direct Action Everywhere holding up peace signs. Some of them are holding flowers. Some of them have a guitar and are singing. And the law enforcement response to this tells you everything you need to know about where the powers that be stand on this issue. The government, and I am talking about Congress, I'm talking about the USDA, I am talking about local governments, are completely, you could say, co-opted, you could say on the side of, and subsidizing industrialized animal agriculture. Indeed, there's a good argument to be made, given bird flu and given all the other issues that are happening right now, that if U.S. taxpayers' dollars were not funding this industry overall, it would be in real crisis. And that's why the Farm Bill is such a tug of war. And year after year, it still hasn't been decided. And people are still fighting to get these subsidies removed from the Farm Bill, that when there's bird flu, the companies are reimbursed by the taxpayers to many, many millions of dollars. And there is tremendous subsidy of commodity crops that feed these animals, who are eating most of the food consumed on this planet, because we're 8.2 billion humans raising and killing more than 80 billion farmed animals every year. They're eating more food than the humans are eating. So what we could say, we could reduce the deficit by eliminating these subsidies. We could end world hunger by taking all those soybeans we're feeding to cows and feeding them to starving humans. We could improve people's health care, radically lowering heart disease, high cholesterol, colorectal cancer rates, all sorts of things that are connected. For example, processed meat is officially cancer causing, according to the World Health Organization. We could fight climate change, because animal agriculture is a leading cause of climate change, responsible for more greenhouse gas emissions than all transportation combined. All of that, forget it. The government is calling this an essential industry. It's saying that it has the responsibility to back up this animal agriculture industry, even though, and I'll state it right now for the record, nobody needs to eat an animal to survive or thrive. So what does that tell you? And you know, I'll just toss it to Tiffany Brunelli. What does it tell you about what we're up against to get a fair and balanced trial here?
I'm trying to get my mind around it, that this trial is about criminal animal abuse and trying to expose that. And what does that have to do if someone's vegan or vegetarian? They can still have empathy for these animals that they see in these conditions if these records and photos get in. So yeah, it's just, feels like a huge mountain that they're even prosecuting the whistleblower. It's just, and that we're spending so much of our tax dollars on this trial.
Before Matthew has to go into court, because court's starting again at 1:30, I want to get the very latest on a defeat for the defense, which concerns another animal cruelty investigator, Raven Deerbrook. Now, this is a famed animal cruelty investigator, an undercover investigator who has broken massive stories. She's been written up in all the major newspapers, or many of them. Raven Deerbrook was going in at the same time as Zoe was going in, and she was getting records, condemnation records, that she photographed inside the slaughterhouse, the very slaughterhouse where Zoe Rosenberg went in and rescued those 4 chickens. And those condemnation records could show, I don't know, I haven't seen them myself, but my general understanding of condemnation records is that it shows how many birds show up dead on arrival, how many birds show up so sick that they have to be condemned, meaning not put into the food system, but after they're killed, discarded. So what is the ruling on whether those condemnation records can go in, Matthew?
Yes, we had that ruling today after a lot of argument prior. The judge took until today, finally made his decision after a good bit of reasoning. What he said is that Raven is not allowed to testify as an expert, which would allow her to bring in her own pictures as part of the evidence for the court. And he did that mostly on the basis that she doesn't have a list of certifications that potentially he would have allowed her to bring them in under, and that she wasn't involved in the creation of the documents. So that was the main reason that he said she's not allowed to bring the documents in. And then, yeah.
Go ahead, continue on if there's something else you want to say, because I know you have to go into court in 1 minute.
Yeah, the second piece avenue that the defense was trying to get the same documents in under was to say that Mr. Schrader, whose first name I don't remember at the moment, sorry, Mr. Schrader anyway, is a employee of Purdue that was brought in, and he was the part of the oversight. I'm forgetting his specific role, but to say that he actually could also verify the authenticity of the documents. And the prosecution was arguing that he was a little bit too far removed, didn't know the specific people who were filling out the documents or the specific process. And the judge also ruled on that today, that he also is not allowed to testify to bring in the documents. And so it looks like the documents won't be able to be brought in or likely discussed. It would only be hearsay and not an exemption to any of the hearsay reasons that somebody could still bring it up. So Zoe won't be able to use the documents as what she relied on for when she did her investigations or her action.
Oh my gosh. And of course, no video, except for the video of her actually taking those chickens. No video, for example, that Direct Action Everywhere provided of Purdue facilities. Thank you, Matthew. I know you have to go into court. Great job. We'll see you Monday. And we're going to be here live Monday, but we're going to take a moment to discuss this, even though I know you have to go inside court, so I don't want to hold you up. Justine, thank you. That's really a defeat. That's a huge defeat for the defense. What are your thoughts?
I appreciated the report about what happened. It is very disappointing and very much a loss for the defense, not only to not be able to bring in the condemnation records, but to not allow Raven Deerbrook to testify as an expert witness.
Yeah, this is really, really tough. And, you know, it seems that we've got a situation developing here that I don't know. I mean, can this woman get a fair trial with no footage of why she went in? Okay, she went in because she had been collecting footage and seeing what was happening inside these facilities. So first, what I want to do is I want to, for always, invite Purdue and or Petaluma, which is a subsidiary of Purdue, on any time. And I want to say that Purdue says that it has had the highest animal welfare standards, no cages or crates, freedom to express normal behavior, all vegetarian diet, no antibiotics, no growth performance drugs. And you can go on corporate.purduefarms.com/responsibility/animal care to learn more about that. And their statement is that they are a leader in animal welfare dedicated to the highest standards of animal care and give our birds space to roam, access to the outdoors, enrichments that support natural behavior, and that the claims of cruelty are false, pushed by an extreme group, DXE, with the ultimate goal of ending animal agriculture altogether and imposing a radical agenda that would threaten the livelihoods of Sonoma County farmers. Okay, so there's one side. Here is some of the images from Direct Action Everywhere's investigative report. And this is not going to be seen by the jury. Here's some more footage that was provided by Direct Action Everywhere of Petaluma Poultry Facilities that Zoe said influenced her decision to go in there. These are chickens who are unable to stand up, get to the water bowls, according to DXD. And while you see they are not in cages, Direct Action Everywhere is saying that these animals are, many of them, if not all of them, I mean, they feel like it's suffering to be in industrialized animal agriculture, but specifically that there were birds that were dead and specifically injured that they have documented. And they took this to law enforcement over and over and over again with no result. But the jury is not going to see this. Now, you know, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. So I don't know. We don't even know. Oh, by the way, Zoe Rosenberg alleges, which Purdue and Petaluma deny, that live chickens are boiled alive when they are not, they slip through the stunning process. And they point to the flapping of the wings here as evidence of that. And again, we invite the company on anytime. We would love to dialogue with them. They have an open invitation to come. But the point is that all of this informed Zoe Rosenberg's decision to go in. So A, the jury will not see this footage. And B, now they will not see the condemnation records either, that also informed, because Raven was inside the very same facility where Zoe Rosenberg took, from which Zoe Rosenberg took the 4 chickens. So if they can't see the footage, if they can't read the condemnation records, which would show how many birds presumably show up dead on arrival, how many are sick, how many are condemned and can't go into the food. I mean, I'm kind of at a loss for words. How can Zoe defend herself? And I'll just do a round robin, starting with Lindsay.
I mean, I was just thinking, when I'm seeing the footage, I can barely look at it. And then I'm thinking about Zoe being inside there, seeing these animals, going up and turning one over that obviously could not turn itself upright. How, you know, how much of that she must have taken in to put herself, her health, her mother, her sanctuary, all of these things under stress and risk, because she knew she had to be the one to go in and do this right now, because this needs to be exposed. And I mean, that's one of the things that went through my mind. It's so important that we get this out and share this out, because if people saw the 2 things they're excluding, in my opinion, they would have, if they allowed for the expert witness, if they allowed for the footage, who could not in their right mind acquit her? That's why they don't show it. It's so obvious. And I hope that the jury, I'm praying that the jury, their thoughts, they have the same thoughts, that they can see through this. That's our only hope, because I think it is very, very one-sided.
All right. Well, final thoughts as we go into the weekend. Remember, on Monday, we're going to be back with opening statements. And I believe we'll be starting at 1 p.m. As we do most days in the lunch hour. So Matthew, who is going into court to get the information, can join us and tell us what he and some of the other folks who are there have observed. So 1 o'clock on Monday, we'll be back. Final thoughts. Let's get Tiffany Brunelli in there.
I'm so disappointed. It just seems so biased and unfair. That how is the defense going to explain why Zoe went in there? It seems like, yeah, it's very difficult to get continues to be very difficult to get a fair trial with all this work and effort that went into these investigations. And the jurors aren't going to get to see this. They're going to get to see one little video clip of her rescuing some chickens. It's not going to make any sense. So like Lindsay said, hopefully they're going to be able to put it together.
All right. Final thought from our attorney, the amazing Justine Block.
Well, Zoe's fate is in this jury's hands. It's going to be a really, really interesting case to watch. And I know that today the judge read the charges to the jury. The jury heard all the charges today on the felony conspiracy, the 2 trespassing misdemeanors, and the tampering with the vehicle charge. When I looked through the charges for count number 2 of the trespassing, is the one that does look at Zoe's state of mind. So count 2 says on or about June 2nd, 2023, in the county of Sonoma, state of California, the crime of trespass with intent to interfere in violation of Penal Code 602K, a misdemeanor was committed in that Louise Rosenberg did unlawfully commit a trespass by entering lands for the purpose of injuring property or property rights and with the intention of interfering with, obstructing, or injuring with the lawful business and occupation carried on by the owner of such land, his or her agent, or by the person in lawful possession thereof. So that is one of the counts of trespass that is looking into her state of mind and allows for her to make some defense as to why she was there on the property with the vehicle there, as you see in the footage, rescuing the chickens. In her mind, she was rescuing injured chickens. So this allows her to at least present some defense. My understanding is that veterinary records are still allowed, and there's witness testifying with regard to the veterinary records, as I gathered from previous information we received. So we will have to see ultimately the instructions that go to the jury later in the trial.
Wow. Well, thank you for that recap. Listen, this is historic. So the breaking news today is that a jury has been seated, 7 men, 5 women. Opening statements are Monday. And I urge everybody, share this out because you are a part of history. Think back on big moments in history in other social justice movements. And imagine if you were there and you could have shared it out. Well, a lot of times the technology didn't exist for sharing out, but now you can. And I also urge everybody, we are a 501c3 nonprofit. You can watch Unchained TV by downloading it on your phone for free or going online to unchained.tv. And we're also on Amazon Fire Stick, Roku device, Apple TV device. So we urge everybody, please be a part of this movement to cover this issue. We are the only news organization covering this trial every single day till the verdict. Thank you so much. See you Monday.
Wow. You know, I never noticed that young man with the turquoise jacket, he was photographing and then they arrested him. Did you see that?
Oh.
They had Zoe handcuffed and he was walking along filming her with his camera, and then they grabbed him, and then later you see him in handcuffs.
All right, let me.
Oh
I'll
my
have to send it
gosh.
to Vimeo and make sure that they check.
Is that on video?
Right.
Yeah, it's on that clip there. You'll see it next time.
Oh.
Okay, well, I guess
Are we done?
I think
So it might have been on their side because I couldn't even get into like the website.
Yeah.
To go into the browse.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna go check it out right now.
It went in, like it just popped up now.
It just popped up now with the actual video.
No, not the video, just me being able to get to the website. I took a picture and sent it to Heather, not to you, because you were
Well,
in the
please
show.
send it to me because I have to file the report with them.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, this is what
Okay.
it said, just so you know. And I tried it 10 times, and I
Yeah,
tried
okay.
unchainedtv.com and unchained.tv.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So there might have been a problem with Vimeo. Okay. I'll check it out. Oh, guess what? We're still live. Why is this saying that we're not live? Well, guys, you get to see behind the scenes. How do you like that?